Welcome back to How to Tickle Yourself. I'm your host, Duff McDonald, along with my co-host, Matt McButter. Listeners of this show should know by now that we're Woodstock friendly in these parts. We're also big fans of live music. Add those two together, and you come up with Levon's Barn, the legendary music venue founded by the late Levon Helm, home to the Midnight Rambles, and also some of the best live shows I've ever seen in my life. All of which makes it an almost unbelievable thrill to introduce this week's guests, husband and wife performing duo, Larry Campbell and Teresa Williams. To read through Larry and Teresa's list of accomplishments would take more time than we have for this show. So I'm going to give you the abridged version. Multi-instrumentalist, Larry is one of the most respected guitar players alive. He's recorded with the likes of Bob Dylan, Levon Helm, Judy Collins, Sheryl Crow, Paul Simon, B.B. King, Willie Nelson, Little Feat, and Roseanne Cash. He's performed with Elvis Costello, Emmylou Harris, and Phil Lesh. He was a member of Bob Dylan's Never-Ending Tour band from 97 through 2004, which means that I have seen him play live about 15 times. After that gig, he took over as musical director and band leader for the Levon Helm Band during their Midnight Ramble concerts in Woodstock. He toured regularly with Levon and produced Helm's two Grammy-winning albums, Dirt Farmer and Electric Dirt. Singer and guitarist Teresa Williams has shared the stage as a vocalist with the likes of Mavis Staples, Emmylou Harris, Hot Tuna, Jackson Browne, Phil Lesh, Bob Weir. Here's my favorite part. She played the lead in Always, a play about Patsy Cline, which had her singing 25 songs and doing 23 costume changes each night. But it's when they work together that the magic happens. They've been performing together for nearly 20 years and released 2 studio albums together, their self-titled debut in 2015 and Contraband Love in 2017. And this week, our friends at the Royal Potato Family label released Live at Levon's, a rollicking performance recorded in 2019 that is as perfect an example of the power of love that you could ask for. They've got it, they know how to express it, and they will share it with you. In other words, these two know how to tickle themselves, each other, and the rest of us to boot. I'm still a little stunned that I am even talking to them today. So thank you for joining us, guys. We are honored and blessed by your presence.
Thrilled to be here, Duff. Thanks for having us.
After present moment, traveling town to town, the mystery of the motion. Right here, right now. Right here, right now. Whoa, right here, right now.
So, I want to get right into it. When I see you two perform on stage, it's like you're in a different dimension. It's like you are spiritually high, hanging out in the place between two breaths. It's like you're all alone, even though we're all together. What does it look like in there? Is it all made of light? Is it all light, the place you guys go to?
On a good day.
I'll go to you. It's the coolest thing I can imagine. As a musician, as a partner to Teresa, it's where I want to be doing what I want to be doing every time we do it. You know, it's it's very intimate between us, and then we have an opportunity to share that intimacy with a crowd of people, and then they start bouncing that right back to us, you know. I mean, what more can you ask? You know?
I thought, listening to Live at Levon's over and over the last couple weeks, it's an amazing album. Got a couple things I want to say. The guitar on Surrender to Love is fucking mind-blowing. Caravan is such a fun song. It sounds like a traveling party. When I Stop Loving You, which I listened to on there, and I just saw in the documentary, the version you guys did when they were talking about, was it William Bell? Did he write that with you?
Yeah.
That song makes me feel warm all over. It's just so beautiful. And then Old Dangerfield also feels like arriving, like walking in the door at a great party. So thank you for all that music. It's so wonderful. Aside from those, though, Big River, you have a great cover of it. And I've always wondered this about songs that other people cover. And as a musician, I don't know the answer to it. So I'd love to hear it. I've heard Dylan sing it. I've heard Cash sing it. I've heard the Dead sing it. It's clearly a great song, but I don't know why it's a great song. Why is it a great song?
Well, that's a good question. Why is it great? To me, because it's fun. It's just
Right.
fun to sing and play. And Phil asked Teresa and I to do that at some point when we were on tour with him, and it just stuck. You know, I had known it since I was a kid. There was a bluegrass band from San Francisco called High Country. I mean, I had heard the Johnny Cash tune when I was a kid. The version of it. And then I heard this bluegrass version of this West Coast San Francisco bluegrass band called High Country back in the 70s, early 70s, I guess it was. And that's when it really got under my skin, you know. I mean, Teresa would have known it from her dad probably when she was a kid, from the Johnny Cash version, you know. And it's fun. It's just a fun song, you know.
Mm-hmm. So you guys were another scene from the documentary that was so good, which I just watched this morning, was when you were sitting on your parents' porch singing Farther Along, Teresa. And I was like, wait, I've heard that song recently somewhere else. And I realized I've been listening to one of Elvis's gospel albums, the one called How Great Thou Art, and he sings it on there. So your whole background is all church music, right? And gospel, as opposed to Larry's, which is more rock and roll.
Well, I think the music that I grew up around and was exposed to is what created rock and roll. So it's not just the church music. It's not just the gospel. It's country, blues, because we had radio, we had TV. And, you know, if my parents had control of the dial, my grandparents, it was the country station. But if my brother and I had control of the dial, it was the famous historic WHBQ out of Memphis, or at night you might get WLS out of Chicago if the humidity was just right. Yeah. And then what my father was playing in the living room. So really, we grew up on what kind of created rock and roll, seriously. And this area like rockabilly, they have the Rockabilly Festival 40 minutes from here where Carl Perkins was from. And, you know, it's just small time farmer, just entertaining. That's how people entertain themselves and heal themselves. And church was definitely a big part of that, for sure. There was nothing else. There was either sports or music. You could join the military, you could play music or sports. And those were your windows into the world around here. Seriously. If I hadn't known what I wanted to do, I would have joined the military. I'm very serious, to get an education. And it's pretty basic.
So on speaking about country, Larry, you were talking in the documentary about discovering Sweetheart of the Rodeo and Flying Burrito Brothers, about how they both opened you up to country. As a guy who could, be on stage with any of the great rock bands, what is it about country that's more fun or more interesting as a guitarist?
That stuff always spoke to me. I mean, even before my exposure to that California country thing, those bands in particular were a bridge to me. They showed me that you could have this bridge between rock and roll and country music, two genres which I was eaten up with. When I was a kid, I would, whenever I'd hear a fiddle or a banjo or my parents had this great eclectic record collection, and it was it's the Hank Williams records, Broadway records, the Weavers, Grand Opera, all this stuff. But whenever I'd hear this stuff that was based in music, which I was unaware of at the time, but that came from south of the Mason-Dixon line, it just spoke to me in some way. And there's this unadulterated, comes from the dirt honesty about that music, that genre, that is just compelling to me. This is what it's been in me my whole life, really. But that California country thing showed me that you can do all this stuff together. And
Levon, I always thought was an interesting case because he was in Toronto and then Woodstock, and he is so south. He is so southern, right? And
the day he did it to the very end, he still sounded like he just walked out of the cotton patch. It was astounding. I don't know how he managed to maintain. It just never went away. I've been away from the South a long time too, and mine is kind of mixed depending on who I'm talking to. Like if I'm on the phone with my mother, I go full blown back into it, But Levon was just that. I can't help it. My brain kind of controls whatever sound is coming out. It's not intentional. When you're tired, or a Spanish person reverts when they're angry to speaking Spanish, it's the first language. But Levon, it was just always, that's all you ever heard from him.
My wife is from Atlanta, and when she gets tired, same thing happens. Suddenly it's like I'm living with a different person. What about live at Levon's? Wonderful sound, obviously. What is it about the barn? You guys are barn royalty. What is it about that place? Is it architectural, or is it magical, or is it both?
Both, no question about it. Levon was so proud of the fact that there was no, what did he say, Teresa? There wasn't a nail in the place, right? All that wood was put together with pegs and wooden pegs and a particular type of barn building, and he was convinced that contributed so much to the acoustic sound in there, which I don't doubt at all. And but the magic in there, because when Teresa and I started doing this thing, up through every year of it, every performance, up until we lost Levon, and beyond that too. You walk in there, you play music, and all you're getting is the joy of playing music. It's just completely conducive to distilling music down to its purity, and how much of that is in the architecture and how much is that into this inexplicable magic that just permeates the place, I can't tell you, but it's real. It's definitely real.
And the proximity too, right? Because you're right in front of your audience, and that's about as close to an audience as it gets, right? With that front
we're
row
all
there.
in it together there. We're all in this thing together. It's a totally communal experience.
So, Teresa, you had a great line in the documentary too, where Larry was referring to, said you have a concept called music utopia. And it's when you're able to connect with the audience and you get a sort of a feedback loop going.
That was really working with Levon, working on Dirt Farmer record. That's what prompted that phrase, because that's what it was like. Okay, he just expected you to bring your creativity. It wasn't puppet singing, it was he treated it kind of like an ensemble. Obviously, he's Levon Helm, he's the star, blah blah. But he treated the shows and the recording experience like an ensemble situation. Everybody is throwing in, and it's like it's supposed to be, it was just, that's why I call it music utopia, or like a musician sandbox where it's just freedom, real creative freedom. It's excellent. I couldn't believe it was happening, really.
Matt wanted me to ask, Larry, we want a BB King story. Give us a BB King story.
Oh man. Well, I did one record with him. And I had met him actually when I was a kid. I met him when I was like 11 or 12 years old. I was playing in my first band with the drummer in that band was Bobby Thiel, who was son of Bob Thiel, record producer, who had produced a bunch of BB King records. And that's how I first heard about BB King, Well, he took us to Cafe Generation down the village, BB King and Chuck Berry in this tiny club in the village,
Oh my God.
And that's where I first met BB. And, I'm a kid just learning guitar. And here I am with like the greatest blues guitar player on the planet right at the time. And great experience. So, okay, fast forward these many years. And we're in this studio recording his, I think it was 80th birthday record or something. But and he was the most gracious, generous person you could ever want to meet. And we were running through a tune together, and he says to me, "Man, I wish I could play as good as you." I'm thinking, "What are you kidding?" What? I said, Wait a minute. He said, "I've spent half my life trying to get close to what you're playing, and you're telling me that, man." And I was just playing rhythm guitar behind him. I wasn't. I didn't want to even try to compete with his lead playing. I mean, the guy. There's a style of blues, electric blues guitar, that this man invented, that we've all either been directly or indirectly influenced by as guitar players, and what a total gentleman he was, man. Just wonderful.
Beautiful.
So there's thing that comes through live at Levon's and also through the documentary is just how much in love you two are, right? Mm-hmm. It's over and over, and it kind of like I'm going to try and read something here without crying, because I practiced before, I couldn't do it. It's the following. You said, "After I met Teresa in the mid 80s, I'd be out with Bob Dylan and something was missing. I got a gig and it's what I always wanted, but it's not my stuff and it's not with the person I want to be with. And then when we got a taste of being a performing duo at the Rambles with Levon, the idea that we could expand on that was completely alluring. The way I see it, when Teresa and I are together doing our material for people who come to see us, then everything I ever wanted out of life is pretty well complete." Is that a shared sentiment, Teresa? You feel the same way?
I think it's different for me, but it's a full circle for me. And one of the things that attracted me to Larry when we were dating was that, when we were first, he'd come over for supper or something to my little apartment on 91st Street. He'd pick up a guitar, and just having that guitar, it was like being in my parents' house. It was a very much a full circle. I just remember thinking, oh, this is nice. I like having the guitar the way I did when I was growing up. And that was a big brownie point. And that, I guess I said in the documentary, that's the glue that has held us together. The music, the camaraderie, and understanding, seeing music a lot the same way, having the same musical interests, and that, and then working together is. You mentioned that I'd done Always Patsy Cline. I did the Carter Family thing. I was a theater major for straight up classical acting, and I loved it. But to me, they're kind of, you're doing the same. You're telling a story, and if you're telling it honestly, then that's where your flow comes in, and that's the tickle me part of it. As long as you're not thinking and you're in that flow space. So when Larry and I achieve that, then yes, it is my tickle me spot. And I think that's what. I'm going way off on tangents. If you don't let me.
No, that's not a tangent. You're right in the wheelhouse.
It's achieving that flow thing. I forgot why I mentioned the theater part of it, but just as either one, it's all the same business to me. If you're in the honesty thing, and I think that honesty thing is what attracted Larry. I've heard him describe. You asked what pulled him to country music. I think at the time country was still raw and very straight up honest, when the rock and roll thing might have been veering into synthesizers and pyrotechnics and falderall, shall we say. So I think Larry was just seeking the truth, which is what, that's the thing. It's like chase. If you can live in that space of truth, I don't care about anything else. So that's a long-winded way to say, yes, I think you're probably right about me and Larry. Because I know we're both reaching for the same thing. And after being apart for that many years, it's amazing that we survived it. And it's like we don't want to be apart anymore. I've got my aging parents situation. Life throws you curveballs. In the pandemic, being down here with my folks, life throws you curveballs. We plan to put out that live record, live at Levon's, early 2020. And, we see what happened. So you kind of have to roll with it. But that's my sidebar there. Sorry, went off the deep end.
So, Larry,
as usual.
You said, Larry, in one of the episodes of this thing, you said that you started playing guitar in 1966. So I ran some quick math. You have been playing guitar for almost 60 years.
Oh man.
Do you still have to practice?
Every day. That's the first thing I do when I wake up, is pick up an instrument, usually a guitar. And there's, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And my goal, and this is what I always tell myself, I'm not the greatest guitar player in the world, but I'm gonna be. And somewhere down deep inside me, I believe that, as ridiculous as that is, I just keep, I'm obsessed with staying on top of that. It's, there's things about guitar playing that I feel that I fall short of, that I'm constantly trying to chase, I just want to get better and better and better. And it's not going to stop,
So listeners, you just heard one of the greatest guitar players in the world talk about not being where he wants to be yet. That's all you really need to know about the value of practice. Okay. I've resisted. What are we in here? 25 minutes. I have to ask a Dylan question.
I can't believe it took this long, Duff.
It took this long. What is
Neither can I. I'm very impressed.
What's the best thing you took away from that 8 years or whatever it was, that you either learned or just experienced? What was the best part of it?
The realization that you could, if you perform something with honesty and sincerity, that genre means nothing. You can go out there, and Teresa's pointed this out I'm
sorry, I'm butting in. The first Dylan, the first time I ever saw Dylan live was when I went with Larry. He was new with him. It was down south. Maybe it was Memphis, and then a festival down in Mississippi. And that was my biggest takeaway, what Larry just said, from my first experience of seeing Dylan live. That's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, and she pointed that out, and I thought, this, and I kept seeing that happen. Bob has license to do whatever the hell he wants, but so do we, if we do it with honesty and sincerity and out of the love of that genre. Teresa can sing a Peggy Lee tune, she can do a Loretta tune, and then we can do a rock and roll tune a tune I wrote with Jorma Kaukonen. We can do a blues tune like we did on Contraband Love. We can do
Loretta.
We can do Loretta. We can do an old Doc Watson tune. We can do a Beatles tune. We can do this stuff as long as we put ourselves into it and do it because we feel it, we love it, and it's honest. And this is what I saw in Bob. He was able to do. I remember seeing him at the Woody Guthrie tribute in 1967 at Carnegie Hall, and he did. There was Pete Seeger and Judy Collins and Richie Havens, all your folk heroes, Tom Paxton, Arlo, and they all came out with a guitar, acoustic guitar, and did a Woody Guthrie song. And then here's Bob at the end of the show with this ragged rock and roll band singing two Woody Guthrie tunes, but and they blew the roof off the house, and it was first time I'd seen the band, they were backing them up. And right there was a marriage of rock and roll and folk music. And then he comes out with those two records, what John Wesley Harding and Nashville Skyline. There's a marriage of rock and roll, folk music, and country music. And then he does his gospel thing. Then he does, he's done, Subterranean Homesick Blues. There's a blues tune. It's, it's a, he's got when Bloomfield was playing with him, you get that all that blues influence in there, and then playing with him all those years to see this stuff in practice. It just said, okay, Teresa and I can do whatever we want as long as we feel it, And,
you also mentioned in there, you had a great line, and one of the things you said, you spend your time in playing in small bars thinking of playing in large venues. And then you get to those venues and you think about getting back to the small venues again.
Yeah.
What's your favorite, like, if it's even an answerable question, what's your favorite kind of venue to play in? You two.
Small theaters and Levon's Barn for me. Yeah. Yeah. That's, yeah. Yeah, I don't know, Teresa, you might think differently, but
Well, I see on Jambase, you guys have a tour coming up as well. Feb 2nd, kicking it off in Easton, Maryland at the Stoltz Listening Room.
yeah.
And 24 dates, wrapping it up. Where else? But at Levon's Barn on April 22nd.
Yes.
Amazing.
And so a 30-year marriage, 30+ year marriage, and now you spend all your days together? You get up, you work together,
Well, no. I'm speaking from Peckerwood Point, Tennessee, and so I'm down here helping my mother, who's fairly newly widowed, and Larry is in New York City, usually Woodstock. So no, it's sad because we like to be together, but we didn't plan for the aging parents part. Like I said, life throws you some curveballs, and I'm grateful that I can be down here. But I'll get back up there just in time, basically, to hit the road running. Hey, I can't let you leave without. At some point, we have to throw in. I heard a little bit of your podcast with Kevin Calabra and the story of the name of the label, his label that we're associated with now, and we went out to dinner with Kevin, and we flat up asked him, first time I'd met him, but, I mean, except at the bar and to say hi at Levi's, what's up with the name of this label, Royal Potato Family? And he told the joke at dinner. And Larry's listening, we're listening, and it's hysterical, stupid and hysterical, of the Royal Potato Family. And Larry suddenly goes, that Bob Dylan had told that joke to I forget who it was that Kevin knew and Marco knew. And Larry goes, regarding Bob Dylan, I told him that joke.
No way.
That's
so
right.
we've
So you are
onion, we've traced it back to Larry. That's
and
awesome.
Then Larry, because we kept going, Royal Potato, what, the Royal Potato, who would name their label Royal Potato Family? And we're sitting there listening, there's beat, beat, beat. And Larry goes, I told him that joke. And then Larry tells who in third grade told him the joke. Tell it, Larry. I'm sorry.
So, have you heard this? Have you heard this?
We need it again.
Tell it to us again.
It's on the.
So I learned this from my friend Andrew Rosenthal in third grade. He told me this joke. And as there was something in the back of my head about the Royal Potato Family ringing a bell. Okay, so here's the joke. So there's a Royal Potato Family. There's the King Potato, who's in Idaho. There's the Mother Potato, who's a russet. And there's the Princess, the Queen Potato, who's a russet. And then the Princess, who's a sweet potato. So one day the sweet potato comes home and says to her parents, says, Mom and Dad, I'm in love. I'm going to get married. And King Potato says, oh, that's wonderful. Are you marrying are you going to marry a Royal Idaho potato? She goes, no. Are you going to marry a Royal Russet potato? She goes, no. Are you going to marry a Royal Sweet potato? She goes, no, I'm going to marry Walter Cronkite. And his father storms out of the room, comes running back and said, there's no way you're going to marry Walter Cronkite. She says, I'm a Royal Idaho potato. Your mother's a Royal Russet potato. You're a Royal Sweet potato. There's no way you're marrying a commentator.
Andrew Rosenthal had no idea what he was starting in grade 3 when he told you that joke.
So years later, we're in California or something, and band was on our bus and Bob's on his bus. Our bus broke down, and so we all end up on Bob's bus to finish wherever we were going, and we're playing cards and drinking, and we start getting into bad jokes. And nobody could out bad joke Bob. That's for sure. But and
maybe
I
your
told
father.
Him, yeah, right. Yeah, my father. Yeah, but so I pulled this one out, and I don't know. Bob may have heard it before. I don't know that he didn't know this before I told it to him, but I definitely remember telling him this joke on that bus. So
I did a after during Theme Time Radio Hour when that was on, I convinced Vanity Fair to let me do a thing on it.
Oh,
and one of these whole sections is bad jokes because there were so many good bad jokes on that show.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. You can't compete with him when it comes to bad jokes.
All right. So as Matt said, tour starting Feb 2. Listeners, check it out. We got an advance listen to this album. It is wonderful. And if you are able to catch these two, you want to do it. I'm going to be at the barn.
Great.
I'm coming in April.
Yay!
And it is really, like I said at first, the music is just wonderful, but also you could feel the love in this, and that's such a wonderful thing to be able to take away from performance. Right? There's reasons we listen to all the different reasons we listen to music, but you know, like you said, Teresa, you're searching for truth, and the truth is just love, right? Everybody knows that, or everybody should know that. And you can hear it all over that thing, all over it. So thank you for making the music. Thank you for bringing it to us. Thank you for performing it for us. It's so wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks
Doug.
for having us, Duff.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right, guys.
You're neighbors. We're neighbors.
We're neighbors. We'll see you in a couple months at the barn, and good luck on the tour. Enjoy yourself. And yeah, can't wait for the next one.
All right, you guys, be safe.
Bye-bye.
All right, so that was Larry Campbell and Teresa Williams. What an adorable couple. I love them.
They're a really cool couple. Yeah. I mean,
right? 30 years of marriage. Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do hear it on, you know, when they play together. Right? There's like an emotional connection that, I don't know, runs through the music.
And for listeners not familiar with them, Larry was the instrumentalist of the year for the Americana Music Association multiple times. Like, he's one of the great guitar players going. I managed to keep my need to talk about Dylan to a minimum. I was very proud of it. But, you know, he was part of the one of the late resurgences in Dylan's career. Larry's guitar playing had a lot to do with it. But yeah, like live at Levon's. And also, if you watch the, I don't think I mentioned it. It's called, it was about the music or something. Let me see here. It was the music on Amazon. It's a multi-part documentary about the two of them, but they really go into, you'll see a whole bunch of big names talking about the kind of special talent that those two have. And it's just, you know, as Teresa was saying, it's just proof that, you know, we don't want to pretend to be people that we aren't. You want to be who you are, right? And get close to the truth, and everyone can feel it, and everyone can feel all around you. And then you end up making great art or just making people feel good.
Yep. And the genre aside part I thought was interesting. Like, it doesn't matter what genre you play. If you have truth and authenticity, it will come through. I was remiss. I meant to ask them if they feel the same way about all genres, even like urban music and hip hop, and how they feel about, you know, some of these more, let's call it more recent forms of the art.
I'm sure they do. But as a guitar, they're both guitar players, right? So they're, yeah, and I can't wait going to see them at the barn. All right, I've got one for you, which is very much apropos of what Teresa said, but also connects to something our friend Dave Foster used to say to me a lot. He was one time we were trying to put a satellite dish on a fire escape in Chelsea, in my apartment in Chelsea. Remember that on 15th Street?
Sounds very Foster. Sounds like a very Foster task.
Well, of course, like I had him by to do that. Or no, sorry, it was on 21st Street. And we couldn't get it. And he turned to me and he goes, I can't get any purchase here on the thing. And at that moment, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to start using purchase that way from now on. Now, I stumbled on a different one, I think, right? See if you can explain this to me. But again, it's what Teresa said too. It says here, this is from a book called the Tripura Rahasya. And it says, speak the truth or your life will not be worth a moment's purchase. What does that mean? What does purchase mean in that context?
I think it's the same, isn't it? Like a moment's purchase, like think, like when you purchase something, you acquire it. I mean, or there's an exchange of value and you acquire it. Like when you gain, I was thinking you said, I can't get any purchase, or Foster said, I can't get any purchase. Mm-hmm. Are you sure he didn't say I can't gain any purchase?
Maybe it was gain.
That's how I feel like I've heard it used more, like on, you're trying to climb up a small slope and it's icy and you sort of like hold someone's hand and say, oh, I can't gain any purchase to get up this hill.
Okay. So then not be where the moment's purchase means if you don't speak the truth, your life isn't even worth a second that you spent in it. Yeah.
You're just sliding backwards.
So thank you, Larry Campbell.
You're falling off the fire escape at 21st Street.
Yeah. So thanks, Larry and Teresa, for speaking the truth in your music, because we can feel it. On that note, we would close out here with an essay or a line from Aurobindo, which again reminds me of these two. He says, this is from an essay called On Art. And he says, according to our own philosophy, the whole world came out of Ananda and returns into Ananda. And the triple term in which Ananda may be stated is joy, love, and beauty. To see divine beauty in the whole world, man, life, nature, to love that which we have seen, and to have pure, unalloyed bliss in that love and that beauty is the appointed road by which mankind as a race must climb to God. And I think their music that these two are making is the soundtrack to that walk. So thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back with you in a week.
Bye-bye.
At the present moment, traveling town to town, the mystery of the motion, right here, right now. Right here, right now. Whoa, right here, right now.
You've been listening to How to Tickle Yourself with your hosts Duff McDonald and Matt McButter. You can help us by liking, subscribing, and sharing this podcast with others. You can talk to us and see what else is happening on Instagram and Facebook at How to Tickle Yourself. This program was recorded in Studio B of the historic Rockledge Recording Studio and the Tunnel Under Arundel. Right Here, Right Now, our original 16-part theme music was written and recorded by the legendary Paul Reddick and Kyle Ferguson of the Sidemen, with the brilliant Steve Mariner on bass and drums and in the mixing room. The podcast is produced and distributed by Storic Media. Our editor is Andrew Steiner. Our coordinator is Samantha Abramovitz. Our producers are Kristen Verbitsky and Chuck LaBella. For more information, visit storicmedia.com That's STORIC media.com.
My love, my dear.